Tim Burton in his prime was a damn good filmmaker, and Paul Thomas Anderson made Boogie Nights. You know, James Franco is no Paul Thomas Anderson, and he's no Tim Burton. Like, those are guys with a vision who clearly loved the material they were parodying. Paul Thomas Anderson clearly loved parodying those dumb porno movies from the 70s and 80s. And Tim Burton clearly had a love for Ed Wood and his films, and had admiration for his, you know, I'm all about the big picture kind of mindset. He definitely did. But at the same time, Paul Thomas Anderson and Tim Burton made a film that was theirs. They paid homage to the filmmaker while at the same time making a brilliant character study of what it takes to make art like this. And this movie doesn't even come close to Boogie Nights or Ed Wood, which are, in my opinion, some of the greatest movies ever made. The music in this movie is horrible. I don't know if it was their intention to have a really stock sounding... I just hate all these fucking movies that do this. There's so many great movies that are like, oh, we gotta throw in music for the pacing, and it sounds like stock music. It sounds like shit. I don't know if it was their intention, because The Room had bad stock music in it, but it had almost the same soundtrack as The Room. I think The Room actually had a better soundtrack, at least I remember it. Oh my god, was the music in this horrendous. I was just imagining this movie without the score. And it's so much better. I mentioned this before, James Franco's great, but the rest of the cast, including Dave Franco, they don't got it. They don't have that raw talent that James Franco has, that raw commitment he has to this role. And James Franco directed the movie as Tommy Wiseau. Dave Franco is so not on that level. He's our viewpoint character, and we really don't get many scenes of him without Tommy there. There's one scene between Dave Franco and Alison Brie, his girlfriend, where Tommy isn't there, and that's it. Because this whole movie relies on James Franco so much that whenever it's not focused on him, it's just dull. Those scenes aren't as interesting, because Greg Sestero, at least the way they wrote him, isn't as interesting. And the actor they got, Dave Franco, is not interesting. I mean, he's fine, but I never bought him. I never went, that's Greg Sestero. I always went, that's Dave Franco doing a Greg Sestero impression. Not even an impression.
Hey, what's up, Michaela?
The first third of this movie is great, because it does not rely on The Room at all. It's about two guys trying to make it in Hollywood, and the dialogue is fantastic, and the acting is solid. Then once this movie becomes about making The Room, it's not nearly as interesting. And the last two-thirds of this movie is that. It's a lot of scenes of, oh, we made The Room. Like, this is what happened when we were making this scene. And then Seth Rogen is the vessel for the audience going, why is he having sex with her belly button? And there aren't too many of those scenes. It didn't get annoying. But compared to I didn't know any of that shit in the first third of the movie that they used to do.
How's it going, Michaela?
Really what this movie should be, and the way most of these movies are structured. So
Give me one.
First third.
Give me a couple minutes. I'll put some music on.
Then the middle of the movie is about making the movie, and then the whole last third of the movie is the after. Once The Room comes out, what happens then? Because this movie really rushes along that part. They have one screening of The Room, everyone's laughing hysterically in a scene that feels so forced and phony and fake, and then Tommy Wiseau just realizes he made a cult classic. Like, that's not what happened. And having the second act low point of Tommy Wiseau realizing he made a bad movie and Greg Sestero being embarrassed by it, and then they go their separate ways. And then as the third act goes on, Tommy Wiseau begins to premiere it more and more and see this growing reaction to it. And Greg Sestero sees the same thing. I think that would have been so much more interesting to see, because that's the part we know the least about. We don't need to focus on how much of a production disaster The Room was. We know how much of a disaster The Room was. We can see that in The Room. And that goes along with the focus of this movie. It doesn't know what it wants to be about. It doesn't know if it's about a friendship, and this movie is there just in the background, or if this is a movie about making this terrible movie, and this friendship angle is only the emotional core. And then we have to rush along all this interesting stuff here. to have a very bland and simple conclusion. The most obvious, oh, they're going to premiere the movie, everyone's going to laugh. And then Tommy Wiseau's going to go on the stage and go, did it, I made a comedy on purpose, that was my intention, ha ha ha. I hate the fake laughing. They're clearly just, like, they focus on all these people in the audience, like, and they're just laughing nonstop for, what, the last third of the movie? It's crazy. Like, even drunk people watching The Room don't laugh for the entire last third of The Room. The opening of this movie is awful as well. It starts with all these celebrities going, I wish I was on set to see The Room, and guys like J.J. Abrams going, I can't believe the emotional impact The Room has had on this culture. And why are we seeing this? Why does it matter what a bunch of dumb celebrities think of The Room? Who gives a shit? And again, it's the lack of focus of this movie, where they could have spent the entire last third of this movie really illustrating the cultural impact The Room had, and instead were treated to a bunch of shit at the beginning of a bunch of dumb celebrities who mean nothing, going, oh my god, is The Room so good? And then there's just title cards at the end of the movie going, oh, and then they toured the movie and it made its money back. But, like, what? That's what you got here. You got a decent fan film. I say fan film, it could have been much worse with the fan service. It's not like they stopped the movie to have fan service, because they don't. This movie is edited pretty well, and it's very tight. I'll give it that. But you can't help but think, this could have been so much more. This could have been a great movie. This could have been best picture level stuff, which would have been so ironic. But instead what you got is a movie like The Founder, or something, where it's solid. You learn a little bit. There's a great performance in it. It's decently made, you know. But aside from that, you don't really get anything out of it. And it doesn't try to do anything that different. You know, at the same time, this is a story that's so good it writes itself, you know. Like, you have to try really hard to mess up this really fascinating story. And they didn't mess it up. They told the story in a way that's very conventional. And I was like, okay, this is fine. This is a fine movie. Good for you, James.